my friend and powerhouse. She spoke about Thursday night. Thursday night and Friday night, as I said, we had tables out here. We had what was called a harvest dinner. And if you were a member, you got invited to it. All members were invited. If you think you're a member and you weren't invited, once again, we may not have your information. But we'd love to have that caught up. And what we were celebrating was a lot of things. We were celebrating what has been true about what we accomplish as a center, as a collective consciousness, and also we celebrated what individuals had experienced. I'm going to talk about Brent because he's here. He spoke once about what it's like before and after. And Jerry spoke about what it was like to go through grief after grief after grief and just lean into the community because she couldn't stand up on her own. And a wonderful young woman, Tara, talked about driving from the Methal Valley 5 hours to get here to be part of the youth group because it had become not only her best friends but her family, and it's what supported her through her senior year when everything was falling apart. And when I heard her talk about driving 5 hours from the Methal Valley through Wenatchee and over the lakes, Stevens Pass, and I'm thinking, people don't want to come because it's 45 minutes. Whoa. Now, what was happening? What supported Jerry? It wasn't this building. What supported Brent through his recovery? Well, can I talk about it? Of course I can. You said it in public. Through his recovery process of not just getting clean and sober, but then also spiritually healthy and mature. It was not this building, it was the people in it. What supported that young woman and was such a draw for her was not so that she could sit in a circle in a room. It was because in that circle and in the room were a bunch of people who believed in her, and that is the consciousness that resides within a community of people. It is the spirit that makes this center so powerful. And form follows function. And if our function is to love, support, and give hope all the time to anyone that needs it, well, no matter where they need it, then form will have to form around us to fulfill that function. And when I say hope and faith and all that stuff and that we provide it, it's wherever you are, because it could be that you are down so low like young Tara was and you need to be lifted up. And it could be that you're up, but you're going, I think I have a dream. And then you're lifted into your dream. And then you get to the dream. It's like, oh, but how can I do that? And we lift you into that because that's what Spirit does. Spirit is always pulling creation to itself. And Spirit works through people. Spirit functions through that which is, I hate to say it, but we are sort of like the pinnacle of creation. I don't think we're smarter than whales, and we're not smarter than elephants. I don't know. I'm certainly not as smart as my horse sometimes. But here's the deal. God gave us the ability to foresee the future. They live in the present. I'm not sure that it's a gift to see the future. But it is a gift to know that out of being able to see the future and use our mental capacities, we are on the edge of creation because when we become conscious, we help co-create a world that works for everybody. And that happens through people. And so we see people and we see where we are and we see that they can go past it. Frankly, if I'm in trouble, I don't want to share my woes with people who think that I'm stuck there forever. I want to tell my woes to somebody who says, oh, yeah, I got it. I feel for you. I know it's true. And I know you'll get through it. I want somebody to believe that I will go through this. And that's what a spiritual community does. And it's a community that is the heart and soul of this thing that we call the Center for Spiritual Living. Now, you're free to ask questions. Brent is our fleet of foot mic runner. And here's what I would love for you to do. I would love for you to ask a question that is taking what we teach and making it personal and applicable. So not really philosophical questions like how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. I don't care. I don't know. No answers, just a second. But if it is personal, and how do I take what I've heard and apply it to my life, then it will probably be rich for everyone. And so we already have our first question. Yes?
Okay, hi, Kathianne. I'm hoping you can help me think about health and illness, because I have a lot of people in my life right now who are facing, some of them very significant health issues. And I understand the 5-step prayer for health, but I just, part of me just wants to go, well, why? Is there cancer and other things in the world? And then what am I supposed to do about it? And I know I'm supposed to pray. Yeah, I'm just kind of bummed out.
So you're wrestling with reality.
Yeah, and coming here, which is this reality? I'm assuming it is.
Small r reality, yeah. So I want to say something that I think is interesting, because about this whole thing about cancer. I'm just got to put this out here. My naturopath is the head of oncology at Bastyr University, and for a while we were going to do a healing trip. In fact, we'd be leaving next month, I guess. A healing trip to Peru to work with shaman, with people that have illnesses. And that didn't turn out to be the way it was. I was going to use prayer. We were going to use herbs and shaman traditions to help break people out. But she said this as the head of oncology. She said, there is more cancer per capita in the United States than in any other country in the world. And we're advanced. So cancer has to be the result of something. It's I don't know if it's environmental or if it's mental or whatever, but if it was just it's not. Why is it finding a good home in the United States? Is a good question. Yeah. So that means that there's something that is triggering it, and if we could find out what's triggering it, we might have less of it. And one of the things that we know attributes to inharmony in our bodies is inharmony in our world. And look at how contentious the United States is against. What is a cancer cell except a cell that decides it's against the body? And it's not anybody. Somebody could be incredibly peaceful, but we live and move and have our beings in the United States in a country that is against things. I'm tired of politics, because it seems like we don't hear what people are for anymore. Instead, we hear why we should be against somebody else, and why we should be against this and this. Even if you eat, you should not eat this. You should be against. Do you see a lot of againstness? A lot of separation, a lot of wrongness, and we live in this. So I think it has an effect on people who can catch that againstness, and it lives in the body. That's what I believe about a lot of things. And I will say another thing that I said Friday evening, because I was just so involved with this whole thing about community. There's a new study out, and what out of long studies of watching people and seeing how our culture is shifting to being more socially unconnected. And even though we have social media, it's not connection. It's pseudo-connection. It's not human-to-human connection. Look how you sit. With my space. People say they want to fill this room. No, you don't. You like your space. Well, what this new study says is that isolation affects the body like smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Isolation. So we're becoming more and more isolated, more removed, but I have 3,000 friends on Facebook. It's weird. So I think a lot of things are happening to us as a culture that don't support the natural balance of the body. The natural balance. And so, in your prayer work, what you might do is do your own natural balancing. And I want to give you all of you a meditation for that, okay? And that is that you could use your breath, because your breath is the only function of the body that is, if you're not awake, you're going to breathe, and your heart's going to pump, and your stomach's going to digest. But you can control your breath consciously right away. Now, eventually, you could control your heartbeat and your digestion, but right away, you can control your breath. So one of the ways to bring balance to your body is to bring balance to your breath. So let's breathe in and breathe out. And say, and this is this conversation. I am, breathe in, balanced breath. I am, balanced breath. And that starts to bring a rhythm and a balance to the breath, which will start to bring a rhythm and the balance to the rest of the functions of the body. And then so for those of you that want to meditate and you're going, I don't know how to meditate, do that for 5 minutes. I am, balanced breath. And it'll start to bring balance in. And you'll start to be more balanced. And then, besides doing prayers for others, like to know their health, also do a prayer that you know what is yours to do to facilitate balance and wholeness for the people you love. What's mine to do? Because otherwise we do this whole chatter thing, don't you? And isn't that kind of hell? Okay, thank you, sweetheart.
Thank you.
Wonderful question, don't you think? Yay, you.
Kathianne, I could use a refresher on personal practice for holding an intention. Sometimes I find myself seeing a lack of health, money, love in my life, and I have an intention of that, and I try to bring this intention into the present. But part of my brain is saying, well, that isn't present because of this, and so I have a tendency to then push that into the future because it's not matching my present. And that's how I resolve the tension, is by pushing that into the future. And it's not working. I need something different than resolving this tension between my reality, what I see as my reality, versus an intention that I'm holding and pushing that into the future because it doesn't match my reality. Okay. How do I bring that into the present and claim it and know it today, right now?
So the first thing is to hit pause. So when you learned to drive, did you have to do it on a stick shift? Yeah. How many have learned to drive on a stick shift? Didn't it make automatics like so-so? I mean, really. I mean, isn't it great to know, just for those of you that have never done a stick shift, you just should, just because. Because you also go to Europe, and what they'll do is try to put you in a car with a stick shift. Just saying. So to go from one gear to another, you're pressing in, and you have to have a place where there are no gears. That's what meditation's for. Before you pray, is to reach neutral. Because sometimes we have our attention. I even watched you. You are like this. This is what's really going on. No, which hand were you? Yeah. This is what's really going on. This is what I'd like to have. This is what's really going on. This is what I'd like to have. You even switched your microphone so you could reiterate that these two are never meeting. Reality doesn't meet my intentions. That's when you go to neutral. How many have had the experience of knowing what you want, but it does not meet your present day reality? So the question was great. It's very difficult to say in the midst of pain, I have no pain. It's in the midst. How many of you have had your heart broken? Well, okay, and then I peace. So that's why what you could do, because you have will, and this is when will comes in. Will decides what you will think. You can't power through anything, but you can decide what you'll think, and what you're going to think is nothing. You have to get out of this gear to go to this gear. But most of the time, we just think about what it would have been like to go from first to third. Hear it now. Okay. But that's what we try to do, don't we? We try to go from desperation to inspiration in 2 seconds. So that's why when I'm in trouble, I know that I have to stop. I pause. And so I use my breath, and then I also use the meditation that I use right now, which is to just simply relax and look up. There's something that happens biologically and physiologically when I look up. I will shift my breath. So I've added to my breath. I put my palms up until this thought stops. I cannot keep this going. The trouble cannot continue when I'm doing this. You can try it yourself. In fact, actually, don't even believe me. Go try it. I'm not wrong. This winding stops. And then when you've got to neutral, you take a deep breath, and from that place, then you intend again. Because this isn't going on, so this doesn't have to make this wrong. Okay, thank you for asking, because a lot of us have that issue.
I have a question about the dreaded fear.
The dreaded fear?
Yes. Well, I think it is. Maybe you'll enlighten me, and that's why I'm asking. You know, I'm in this situation where I know that if I were to leave it behind, it would be the best thing for me, it'd be good, and it's a job that really does nothing for me anymore, but I'm holding on. There's a lot of, it's like the fingernails are almost gone from holding on. So
that's why we're supposed to clip them.
I bite mine, unfortunately. So anyhow, how do you move beyond that fear? How do you put in a good spiritual perspective that you can make those choices that you need, or that I need? I don't know about the rest of you, but I need to make some choices that.
Okay, let me see if I understand what your question is. Your question is, you'd like to move on. How many of you would like to move on? Let's make this for everybody. In some area of your life, you'd like to move on. Okay, but your fear is giving up what you have.
Right.
Oh, isn't that it? Well, sweetheart, I love you, but you're going to give it up, or it will leave you eventually.
Yeah.
Because what I understood in you so clearly is that you have an intention to go. I mean, isn't that true? Yep. You have an intention to go. It's exuding from you. And if you don't take the steps, that job will feel that intention and push you out. Is that not true? How many of you have experienced that? In a relationship, in a job, in a neighborhood, in a home, in a living situation? If you look at all those times you think you were the victim, a lot of the times the universe just supported you in what you wanted, but were afraid to do. So, I would get clearer and clearer on what you really want. Do you know what you really, really want?
You gotta be out of there.
No. I love it. To get out of there. Oh, oh, that's the problem. So when we know what we don't want, it's our responsibility to use our mind to get clearer on what we do want. Because if you knew what you do want, you would be easier to leave. And it won't be running from. Ernest Holmes said that we must be a people who are for something and against nothing. Because when we have against energy will fight us. For energy will pull us. Energy for pulls us. So you need to know exactly what you want. And you'll probably form that by knowing what you don't want. So if you don't like this, this, and this, what would be the opposite? And then hold that and know that you're being lifted or pulled towards that. It'll make it much easier. And most likely what will happen, if you really get clear on what you want, you'll see it and move towards it instead of being pushed out and then having to determine what's going on. And that happens for all of us. And then I want to say this other thing. I would also, whatever your spiritual practice is, I would up it. And turn up the heat. Because that heat, heat rises, spirit rises. And I've watched people, in fact, I listened to 2 of them or 3 of them at first service, who were actually just lifted out of something. And it's so much better than fix-it mode or run mode or problem-solving mode. The more we allow ourselves to turn up our connection to God, the more the possibility of actually being so lifted out of it that this issue isn't even an issue anymore. Now, I'm not sure what will happen. It may be the job will totally change. It happened for me once. I prayed and prayed and prayed to leave this job. It would have been the one I'd prayed for. And there's like, and I prayed and prayed, and I really turned it over to God. I said, you got to help me here. And that job changed. So I'm not sure what will happen. But there's something about the lifting power of spiritual practice that will lift you. And you will see clearer, and in that presence there is no fear. You can't know fear in spiritual practice. And if you can't do spiritual practice because of the fear, then go back to what I suggested for Frank, which is go to neutral. And then start to say, Father, Mother, God, this is the way I'd say it, Father, Mother, God within. I was created to know security and happiness. And therefore, I am going to now accept a position that will allow me to experience greater security and greater happiness, greater creativity and accomplishment and contribution to the world. And I now attract a position that will acknowledge me for that which I am doing and reward me handsomely. And I allowed it happen through me. I now give up the responsibility of making it happen, and I let God be God in my life. Lift me into this position now. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, we have time for one more.
Without getting political, I am in a lot of fear if the candidate that I'm not wanting to be president becomes president. And I spend most of my time getting to neutral and trusting that whatever is going to happen, I try to aspire to that. Whatever's going to happen is going to be the best, and we'll learn and we'll grow. And then I feel like, there's is this passivity, so that's a struggle that I have, and I'd like to hear your perspective.
Okay, well, you're not alone, because I'm sure the whole country feels the same way. One group is thinking, what will happen if she gets elected? And the other half of the country is thinking, what will happen if he gets elected? In November, there's going to be some very disappointed people. And that's what I'm talking about. And I think it affects our bodies. I think it affects everything. We are so combative. So I have to really watch myself and not want to get combative. And I also have to watch myself and not want to stoop to criticism, which has gone through my mind just once. So, what occurs to me right now is a song that what the world needs now is love, sweet love, because when I go to neutral and I go to love, I have no enemies. And so, could we become an epicenter of love? Could you become an epicenter of love? Could we commit to being a place of love and understanding and have that ripple out from us and be contagious with it? There's a line from a prayer by Emma Curtis Hopkins when she says, "Make me a contagion." I mean, a contagion? A contagion of hope and of faith and of love and of serving and remembering. I mean, can we be contagious? Or are we so isolated that even when we're having a really wonderful life, nobody knows it? We don't let it get on anybody. Do you see how that isolation? I'm having a wonderful life. You're on your own. Blank to be you. Anyway. So I think that I think we're being called as a society, so I guess I'm being called. I think we're being called as a society to love more and love harder and make it acceptable and make it okay and make it the new norm. The new normal would be that we love each other. Because, boy, we're seeing what happens when we don't, aren't we? And the call would be, because you see it, and Emma Curtis Hopkins says, if you see a job, it's yours. So I'm seeing a job that we love more, so I'm being called to love more. I was actually driving in, and one of the questions was about forgiveness at first service, and I was driving in, and somebody crossed my mind, and I didn't think I was judging, but judging is so subtle. How many of you know that you just slide down that hill so well until you're down in the valley of judgment? So I was having this mountaintop experience with Jonathan Osteen, listening to his songs this morning, and then somebody crossed my mind, and I was somewhat critical of some actions. And then I had to say, I will not accuse the world or myself. And I had to pull it back. And as soon as I did that, as soon as I pulled back my judgment, I could love that person. And almost like I was so in agreement with what she really wanted in a different kind of way. There was love instead of criticism. And I think that's what we're being called to do as a nation and individuals. So if I see it, I'm called to love more. And if you see it, you're being called to love more and to be out with it. You know, it's easier. I talked about the things that we don't talk about because of Paul last week, that we don't really value relationships because Paul was about not, putting relationships aside, and certainly sex. And if you have to have sex, then be married. But that's the only reason for sex. I mean, can you imagine 2,000 years of that? And then he was all against money because don't try to acquire anything because Jesus is showing up right away. Well, anyway, that was a bunch of bunk. But we need to be we need to break out of that mold of what it is to be spiritual, and we need to be out with love. And the reason I got into Paul is because this whole sex thing is that people keep their sexuality. It was just in the recently that people are willing to say what their sexual orientation is. And it's all, have you noticed there's lots of range? When people start talking about it, the range is immense. But if we can come out with sex, let's come out with love. You know, I'm a loving person. I will openly love. I will openly bless. I will openly care for others, no matter what political party they belong to, brothers and sisters. And I say that because I don't like this anymore. It hurts my heart. And it hurts your heart. So let's let this be the prayer. How many of you want to pray for a peaceful election? And are you willing to be peaceful no matter what? Because we can't pray for it if we're not willing to be it. Oh. So let's just take a deep breath. And let this time be a time of pause. Put your hands on your on your lap, palms up. And you're telling your body you are receptive, and your body is telling you that you are receptive. It's receptivity. You are open to receive. Now move into your chest and notice how your chest expands with each breath. Put your attention on your breath. No matter what you want to think about, don't fight it. Just bring your attention back to your breath. There's no fight. There's no struggle. You're just putting your attention on your breath. Now shift your chin slightly upward. And if you could look, if you opened your eyes, and you can open your eyes if you want, but if you are opening your eyes, you're looking at where the wall meets the ceiling. Slightly up 45 degrees. And sit. And take no thought. Just let thoughts drift away. And now from that place of neutral, from that place of turning to the Spirit of God that animates all creation, from that place I speak this prayer of blessing. From that place, knowing that that life that is the one originating life, I know that it lives me and it lives everyone in this room. And that life is whole, it is complete, and it's perfect, and it is the love intelligence that regulates all the earth and all the solar system and all this galaxy and all the universe and universes without number. And it resides everywhere, including where I am and where each person is. And so I give thanks that that presence is now activating love within us, a love that is huge, a love that is inclusive, a love that is healing, a love that is vibrant and light-filled and reaches out from us to touch everyone around us. I give thanks that that love is now organizing our thoughts and our actions and our words. It is organizing everything about us, and we are becoming the place where love organizes action. We are the epicenter of love being the cause of action. And I give thanks that we can be the place that can be the place that can be the place that shifts other places, that we can be the place that shows up as love, and that we can be contagious with this. Contagious. Let love and kindness and compassion and thoughtfulness and true caring break out throughout Seattle, the Puget Sound, Washington, the West Coast, and let it flow all the way across the country. And no matter what happens on November 8th, nothing can touch us because we are absolutely filled with love. Love is our guidance. Love is our comfort. Love is our protection. And love is our activating principle. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you, Father, Mother. Thank you, sweetness, for allowing us to wake up. Wake up. Wake up the love within so that it flows without. I am so grateful that our country, our politicians, our people are mending our ways, and we are coming more from love than separation. And it begins with me. And for each and every person here, if you want it to begin with you, simply within your heart of hearts say yes. And I bless the yes. And I bless what will come from the yes. And I bless this time together. And so it is.